Incredible Millionaire's touching journey. How helping his boss revealed hidden, unexpected love. David Sinclair stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, gazing down at the bustling streets below. To the world, he was the epitome of success, a self-made millionaire revered for revolutionizing the tech industry with innovative apps and startup think tanks. Yet as he admired the skyline, a hollow ache gnawed at him. The emptiness that settled in his chest felt like a bitter veil, one that wealth and accolades alone couldn't lift. Each trophy glimmered under the sleek lighting but felt burdensome in his hand. He had traded relationships for accomplishments, but now faced doubt as Mr. Thompson, the aging titan of the tech world, assigned him a new project: revive his faltering company. The heavy shadows of his past loomed larger with each passing day spent with Mr. Thompson. Their interactions were marked by disarming nostalgia, sparking memories of his parents' steadfast work ethic. But that pride gradually twisted into frustration. David envisioned a sleek, digitized future for the company, while Mr. Thompson clung stubbornly to the foundational ideals etched into the fabric of the business. It was a fight between old versus new, and David felt torn. The question always echoed: did he stay loyal to the man's legacy or advance his own vision? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As the pressure mounted, a trusted employee, someone David believed in, stabbed him in the back, undermining his efforts to modernize the firm. Heart racing, he questioned his every move. Was this the price of ambition? Through clenching teeth, he confronted the bitter realization that success could breed betrayal. He felt isolated, haunted by the specters of those he once called confidants. Respect he once believed was earned through sheer talent, but now he saw it was won through loyalty, a currency he hadn't valued. In a twist of fate, he found solace in Sarah, Mr. Thompson's granddaughter. Their conversations were charged, revealing shared childhood experiences that tugged at his heart. But guilt tugged at him harder. Could he build a future with her, knowing their ambitions were potentially at odds? His mind spun as deeper feelings sprouted amidst the chaos. Navigating the firm's future took on an urgency intertwined with the burgeoning connection, drawing him into a world of collaboration that felt both daunting and beautiful. Just when David began seeing a path of resolution, a ledger surfaced. Hidden, ancient like a specter from a bygone era, it held secrets that linked their families in ways he hadn't expected. The bonds of loyalty, trust, and possibly betrayal tugged between him, Sarah, and Mr. Thompson. Staring at the ledger, anxiety gripped him. This document could either unite or tear apart everything he'd worked for, including the connection he craved with Sarah. Standing at this precipice with hope and dread mating in his heart, David faced a relentless question. Would he choose solitary success or embrace the messy entanglements of loyalty, love, and legacy? The weight of this dilemma sat heavy in the air, leaving everything in the balance as he contemplated the choice before him. The sunlight flooded into the penthouse, casting warm shadows across the polished floor as David sat at his desk, the ancient ledger spread open before him. Each crease in the yellowed pages seemed to pulse with history, financial records, names of ancestors, and intertwining business ventures that dated back decades. It was more than a mere document. It was a tangled web of loyalty and history, one that threatened to ensnare him if he didn't tread carefully. David's fingers traced the lines of text. The genealogical connections revealed unexpected relationships between their families, ties forged at the dawn of their businesses that could either provide a lifeline or explode in conflict. He weighed the implications in his mind, imagining how Mr. Thompson would react to these revelations. Would it strengthen their bond, or would it lead to more discord, particularly regarding his plans for the company? The thought of speaking to Mr. Thompson about the ledger filled him with dread. He could almost hear the elder man's voice, heavy with skepticism, chastising David for the very ambition that had propelled him forward. Then there was Sarah. Her laughter echoed in his mind, grounding him amidst the chaos. Could he confide in her, knowing it might alter their relationship? The momentum of his feelings had surged, morphing into something more substantial. Yet he feared the consequences of intertwining their paths too closely. In the days that followed, David stewed in uncertainty. The project had become an insidious puzzle, demanding not just ideas but a delicate balancing act of allegiance and personal integrity. In meetings, he noticed the shadow of betrayal lingered in every corner, watching him ready to pounce with every new decision. Colleagues murmured in hushed tones, and glances darted like arrows, targeting his credibility. Each passing hour added layers to the tension, further tying him to both the legacy of the company and the alluring promise of innovation. Yet amidst the pressure, David's resolve began to change. He remembered why he had entered the tech landscape in the first place, not only to succeed but to change the way people connected. His vision had always included collaboration, so why not embrace that ethos now? Perhaps the ledger held keys not only to the company's fate, but to a renewed understanding of his own value system. Moving forward would demand more than his intellect alone. It required emotional acumen, a deeper investment in his relationships. David decided to confront Mr. Thompson about the ledger, hoping it might reveal shared insights that could transform their standoff into an alliance. He rehearsed his words, vehemently believing that honesty would build a bridge rather than burn one. Standing before the aging titan in his office, he noticed the faint wrinkles that lined his boss's brow, parallels to the weight David felt in his own heart. "Sir," he began, his voice steady, "there's something from the past that I believe we both need to understand better." The words hung in the air, laced with resolve. But as the conversation unfolded, he could see the tension crackle, a brewing storm ready to puncture the delicate facade they maintained. Mr. Thompson's skepticism was palpable, yet there was something else, a flicker of curiosity mixed with defensiveness. The moment felt monumental, electric with potential. David took a breath, deciding to reveal not just the ledger but his vision for merging their ideas and creating a new legacy together. One that honored the past while embracing the future. Yet just as confidence surged within him, the door swung wide open, and in walked Sarah, unaware of the gravity of the moment unfolding before her. David's heart raced at the sight of her, torn between a desire to shield her from this encounter and an urge to reach out. "David?" she asked, confusion etched on her face. The uncharted waters of loyalty, ambition, and burgeoning love converged, creating a tension too thick to ignore. David couldn't predict how the upcoming discussion would shift the trajectory of his relationship with both Mr. Thompson and Sarah. But one thing was clear. The moment had come to face not only his fears but the truths that could shape them all. The room went silent as Sarah stepped inside, her presence a jolt that unsettled the precarious balance David had tried to cultivate with Mr. Thompson. He saw the immediate change in Thompson's posture, an instinctive guarding as if preparing for a duel. David felt the weight of the ledger press heavier in his hands, as if it were now a physical manifestation of everything he'd been grappling with: the risk of connection, legacy, ambition, and desire. "Perhaps this is the right time, Sarah," David said, his voice low but steady, trying to maintain the fragile atmosphere he had created. He was desperate to block her from the impending storm, yet something in her gaze beckoned him to share more, to merge the worlds of work and personal connection. "Nonsense. I was just," she hesitated, searching for the right words, "curious. You both seem intense." The awkwardness of her entrance seemed to crack the tension, and David could sense the awkwardness cloaked in confusion hanging heavily in the air. Mr. Thompson shifted in his seat, adjusting to the unexpected interruption. "We were discussing company affairs, Sarah. It requires a bit more discretion," he said tersely, though David caught the slightest trace of intrigue behind those words. Still, Thompson's protective instincts surged, clawing at the delicate threads of understanding David hoped could weave between them. David's heart raced, torn between the urge to maintain professionalism in this charged atmosphere and the undeniable spark of vulnerability that Sarah's presence ignited in him. Reality hit: this was not only an opportunity to bridge the gap with Thompson, but also a chance to connect with Sarah, to show her who he truly was beneath the layers of corporate pretense. "Actually, Sarah," David interjected, feeling the weight of his choice, "I think you should hear this too. If we're going to build something new, it has to include all of us." He could see Thompson's brow furrow, but this was the moment he could no longer walk away from. He had to face his fears and figure out how collaboration, both in business and in his personal life, was essential for growth. With determined conviction, David launched into his vision, articulating how the data in the ledger illustrated the interconnectedness of their family's ventures and the potential for harmonizing past legacies with innovative ideas. As he spoke, he let himself be vulnerable, revealing not only the strategic insights the ledger offered, but also how they could forge personal connections that could redefine their roles within the company. As his words flowed, David caught glimpses of understanding reflected in both Sarah and Mr. Thompson's faces. Sarah leaned in, her eyes brightening as the lines between family legacy and modern innovation blurred. But Thompson remained a fortress, absorbing each word with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. His defenses still up, yet the flickers of vulnerability, now openly visible. "Are you suggesting we can work together?" Thompson asked, a slight undercurrent of challenge threaded through his tone. "With everything at stake?" "Yes," David replied, the pitch of his voice tightening with urgency. "If we embrace the legacy, we can elevate our future. This is not just about companies, it's about connections across families, across ideas." The mood shifted palpably as Sarah remained silent, taking in David's dream, melding with her own hopes, and yet David sensed an unspoken question running between them. The unknown stretched out like a chasm, full of uncertainty but also promise. But just as the conversation seemed to settle into a productive rhythm, Thompson's gaze drifted past David, an inscrutable look crossing his face. "And what of their ambitions?" He nodded towards Sarah, the hint of skepticism returning. "Can they coexist?" David locked eyes with Sarah, a swell of emotion unearthing his deepest fears around the intersection of his professional aspirations and burgeoning feelings. "I need you to know, Sarah," he said softly, "the walls of division crumbling. This means more to me than just company growth. It means building a path forward together." As the words hung in the air, David held his breath, knowing that every truth revealed would change the dynamics forever. The moment of decision hung tantalizingly close. Would they embrace the opportunity to redefine their future together, or retreat into their fears? The moment unveiled a deep uncertainty. Thompson's answer was still suspended in the air, and David found himself wrestling not only with external conflicts, but with the internal struggle of what it truly meant to merge his personal and professional lives as one inevitable conversation awaited. What would the next step demand of him, and would it cost him everything he had built? The atmosphere in the room was thick with unspoken words, tension swirling like mist. David's gaze flickered between the two figures before him, Sarah with her hopeful eyes and Mr. Thompson, the bastion of skepticism. As the silence stretched, he realized this junction was pivotal, a crossroads that could define their futures. "Mr. Thompson," David began again, his voice stronger than before, "I understand your hesitation. But what if we have the chance to redefine what our family's legacies mean? Maybe our different ambitions don't have to clash. Instead, they can complement one another." He took a calculated step forward, sensing the moment was ripe for true engagement. "Sarah, you've seen the market change rapidly. Your fresh approach and insights could provide the innovation we need. It's not just about the ledgers, it's about the people we can become together. This opportunity isn't merely strategic, it's vital for all of us." A flicker of curiosity crossed Thompson's face, and David pressed on, knowing that the shift could unravel long-standing fears on all sides. What if we challenged the way we've always operated? This could be about creating something new that honors where we came from but pushes us toward where we need to go. Sarah's lips parted but closed as she mulled over David's words. His heart raced, feeling the intensity of their gaze resting on him. He had always felt the pressure to conform to expectations, to remain in the shadows of his parents' successful legacies. Yet here, in this moment, he was advocating for genuine collaboration, risking everything for a vision that not only paved a way for businesses but also for relationships. Thompson let out a slow breath, his stern demeanor softening as he seemed to process the weight of David's proposal. "And if it fails?" The question lingered, heavy with the burden of doubt. David paused, weighing his thoughts carefully. "What if it doesn't?" He countered, inviting the room to breathe with him. "Failure can be a teacher. It can ignite growth in ways success never could. Can we afford not to attempt this just because it's safer? It's time to challenge the status quo." Tension danced in the air, but a slight shift in Thompson's posture signaled David was breaking through. This was the moment he had envisioned, the confrontation that was both terrifying and exhilarating. He had never felt more alive, and for the first time the ledger in his hand felt less like an anchor and more like a lever, a tool that could elevate them. "I believe we can do this together," Sarah finally said. Her voice a gentle yet firm beacon cutting through the remaining darkness. "But we're going to have to trust each other. Trust leads to collaboration, and we can't afford to let our ambitions tear us apart." David's pulse quickened at her affirmation, feeling unuttered promises taking root. He realized this was not merely about business. It was about building connections and redefining the expectations that had shackled him for so long. This proposal was an opportunity to transform his relationship with Sarah and the notion of their collaborative landscape. Thompson surveyed them both, the conflict visibly simmering within him. The wariness didn't fully dissolve, but David sensed a breakthrough brewing. "Fine," Thompson replied cautiously, making his acceptance feel conditional but sincere. "Let us explore this." As the wheels of collaboration began to turn, David felt a jolt of relief mixed with a rush of determination. Yet beneath the excitement a question lingered. Was he prepared for the personal costs of this journey? With the fragile alliance unfolding, could they navigate the complexities that intertwined their pasts with their uncertain future? And what would they uncover about themselves along the way together? David exited the room, buoyed by a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The conversation had shifted something deep within him. For years, he had been conditioned to believe that success required adherence to a carefully constructed path, one laid down by the accomplishments of his forebears. Yet, the struggle he felt against that very pressure was palpable. As he walked through the dimly lit hall, he knew he was standing at the precipice of something monumental. A chance to forge a new identity not just as the scion of his family's legacy, but as a partner in something unprecedented. His heart raced with the understanding that, while collaborating with Sarah could create opportunities, it also demanded uncharted vulnerability. He paused by the window, staring out at the skyline that loomed before him. The city was a tapestry of ambition and innovation, but were his dreams intertwined with the foundations of traditional legacies, or could they soar to heights previously unseen? The clarity that emerged from the discussion sat heavily upon him. The notion of trust, so delicately poised, could crumble if not handled with care. "Are you ready to move forward?" he whispered to himself. Reflecting on Sarah's resolve, he recognized that eye-to-eye negotiation merely scratched the surface. Trust was an implicit promise not just to Sarah but to himself. How could he convey to her the depth of his commitment and the fears that accompanied it? His thoughts wove through potential outcomes, parsing the implications of their partnership. What if they succeeded? An exhilarating possibility, yet tinged with anxiety about expectations that would inevitably follow. But then there was the darker shadow: what if they failed? That thought knotted in the pit of his stomach. He had to confront his own doubts before he could ask others to trust him. Encouraged, David tapped out a message to Sarah, suggesting they meet to discuss their vision more deeply. It was a step of faith both in her and in themselves. When she responded affirmatively, a spark ignited within him. In that moment, it became clear that collaboration was less about merging their professional ambitions, and more about scrutinizing their individual truths. He grappled with the notion that the first layer of their partnership had to be built upon unmasking their fears and hopes. At their next meeting, David focused intently on making it a safe space for open dialogue. They exchanged ideas, but he realized he needed to open up further. On a hunch, he decided to share his own vulnerabilities: his fear of failure, the weight of family expectations, and the desire for authentic connection, risking the balance of their budding partnership. "Sarah, I don't just want us to succeed," he revealed, his voice steady despite the tremor within. "I need to know that we can be honest with each other, that we won't allow pressures from our past to taint what we're building." She nodded, a glimmer of understanding in her gaze, and began to share her own struggles about the doubts that had often silenced her innovations, about feeling like an outsider in her own family business. As they spoke, David felt a palpable shift. The fragile walls of his professional persona began to dissolve, replaced by a burgeoning sense of connection. Together, they were redefining not only their legacies, but also the framework of their personal identities. In the weeks that followed, a flurry of planning kicked into motion. They brainstormed ideas, tested concepts, and all the while, a collaborative rhythm solidified their partnership. Yet, beneath the surface, David felt a stirring that was both thrilling and disconcerting. Could this journey evolve beyond business into something deeper? He caught himself contemplating the boundaries between personal connection and professional alliance, unable to ignore the pulse of something stirring between them. Yet fear threatened to hold him back. Was he ready to embrace that burgeoning bond, knowing the repercussions it might bring? The time had come to face these unspoken emotions and decide if he would risk it all for the potential of what could blossom between them beyond mere partnership. Could it evolve into a connection richer than he had ever dared to dream? The moment of truth came swiftly, stoking both apprehension and hope, leaving David wondering what lay ahead beyond the thresholds they had crossed. David awoke with the sun filtering through his blinds, the light dancing on his walls like a new beginning. Morning routines felt different now, imbued with a sense of purpose that had eluded him until recently. Every cup of coffee savored, every hour spent strategizing with Sarah brought moments of reckoning that reverberated deep within him. Their collaboration was not merely business. It was a raw exploration of who he was emerging to be in a world that often clamored for the expected. Today he had called a meeting to unveil their latest concept, an innovative platform that melded their family's businesses with modern ideals. It was daring, perhaps too ambitious for some, yet it felt right, a manifestation of the trust they were cultivating. David paced the small conference room, the sharp angles of the table mirroring the sharp turns his thoughts had taken. Would they both be able to harness their ambitions without retreating to the safety of family expectations? As the time approached, he felt a rush of apprehension mingled with excitement. The stakes felt higher. Yes, they had forged a connection grounded in honesty, yet today would subject that bond to the scrutiny of fellow stakeholders, the very gatekeepers of tradition. When Sarah entered the room, her presence dispelled some of his anxiety. She moved with a confidence that inspired him. David glimpsed the fearless woman who could challenge not only norms but also the confines of his guarded nature. "Ready?" she asked, a slight smile playing at her lips. It was a simple question, yet it echoed like a challenge in his head. "More than ever," he replied, swallowing the tightness in his throat. They shared a nod of solidarity that anchored him. Yet inside, doubt flickered like a failing light. What if this presentation shattered the fragile sense of trust they had built? What if the room rejected not just their idea but the very essence of their partnership? The meeting began, the investors' faces initially inscrutable. As David laid out their proposal, he felt himself slipping into the familiar cadence of corporate rhetoric, the rehearsed patterns of the past beckoning like an old friend. But as he glimpsed Sarah across the room, her eyes urging him to remain authentic, he caught himself digging deeper. "This isn't just about business," he asserted, steadying his voice. "This is about change, about creating a future that honors our families while embracing innovation. Our connection forms the foundation of this journey." A low murmur rippled through the room, and David braced for the pushback he had always anticipated. Instead, a seasoned investor leaned forward, intrigue dancing in his eyes. "And what if this connection falters under pressure? What then?" The question pierced David's defenses, a probing challenge. He felt the weight of it, a reflection of his inner fears. The truth pressed against his ribcage, demanding acknowledgement. "We'll revisit our foundations," he responded, pushing beyond his discomfort. "Failures are honest conversations about our limits. If we cannot face them, then we've built a house of cards." The response ignited a conversation unlike any he had experienced before. Questions turned to discussions, and critiques softened into insights. In that tense hour, he realized that he was no longer just a voice among many. He was a part of something he believed in. As thoughts flew between him and Sarah, an unexpected synergy ignited in the air. The meeting ended with a surprising majority in favor of their proposal, but more than that, it revealed a unity and vulnerability that must be nurtured not just between David and Sarah, but with those who were now part of their vision. As the congratulatory shadows lingered, David pondered the delicate nature of trust. They had faced down doubt and emerged stronger, yet the complexity of their relationship still hung like fog in the background. Later, as they walked out of the building together, an electric tension sparked between them, unspoken words suspended in the air. David couldn't shake the amplified awareness of her presence beside him. Their partnership felt like a living entity, teetering on the edge of personal boundaries. "Today was more than we imagined," Sarah said, her voice low and thoughtful. He nodded, not quite ready to unravel the implications of their success and the space it might open for something more. What was beginning to bloom underneath their shared ambitions? David's mind raced, caught between exhilaration and uncertainty. He needed clarity. As they stepped into the bustling city streets, he resolved to confront the emotions pulsing beneath the surface. Could he truly embrace the potential between them, or would fear once again lead him astray? The air buzzed around them like the city in the early evening, promising movement and change. The night stretched ahead, uncharted, and David wondered if he was finally prepared to seize it. Would he break free from the binds of expectation, or would apprehension pull him backward into the shadows? The city pulsed around David, the rhythm of life in full swing as they walked together, the vibrations of success still thrumming in their veins. Yet, amidst the energetic chaos, his mind churned with the weight of new possibilities. Their partnership had shifted. They had dared to declare their vision publicly, and he could no longer deny the chemistry swirling beneath the surface. As they reached a crosswalk, the world around them blurred momentarily. David stole a glance at Sarah. Her profile, silhouetted against the backdrop of neon lights, exuded both determination and warmth. She was captivating, not just because of her looks but because of how she seemed to embody everything he admired, a blend of risk and control. He was drawn to her fearless ambition, but a twinge of uncertainty gnawed at him. If they crossed the boundary from professional partners to something more, would that fracture the synergy they had just begun to build? "Can we talk?" he ventured, his voice barely above the city din. "Of course," she replied, her brows slightly furrowing with curiosity. They found a quiet cafe, an oasis amid the bustling streets, and settled into a corner table. David fidgeted with his coffee cup, spinning it slowly on the table, wrestling with his thoughts. Part of him knew he had to voice his feelings, yet the prospect paralyzed him. What if his vulnerability shattered the delicate balance they forged? Today felt different, he started, choosing his words like stepping stones over a chasm of fear. "The meeting, our presentation, it revealed something, didn't it? Not just about the platform but about us." Sarah's eyes sparkled with understanding, and for a heartbeat, he saw a flicker of hope bridge the uncertainty. "It did. We took a leap. And that leap," he continued, "made me realize I care about our vision, about the future we envision. But there's also," she leaned in, her expression earnest. "But there's also more than that, isn't there?" David's heart raced. She had jumped directly into the murky waters he dared not tread. "I don't want to jeopardize what we're building," he admitted, the words pouring forth like an unburdening. "What we're building is more than just a business, David," she countered gently, and he sensed the shift in the conversation, the stakes elevating dramatically. "We've become a team. And if there's something more, why not explore it?" As she spoke, a swell of hope clashed violently with the remnants of his self-doubt. "I've built my life around avoiding risks. What if we fail? Or what if we succeed beyond our wildest dreams?" Her confidence was magnetic, yet he felt the tug of familial expectations clouding his thoughts. Navigating personal ambition had always felt precarious. Doing so intertwined with love felt like walking a tightrope without a net. David caught her gaze, seeing not only the appeal in her eyes but a challenge, an invitation to embrace the unknown. The juxtaposition rattled him. Was he capable of confronting this complex dynamic? "Having you as my partner is the most exhilarating and terrifying thing I've done," he confessed. "What if I'm not enough? What if we become just another statistic of failed partnerships?" Sarah reached across the table, her fingers brushing against his hand. "Then we'll adapt. We'll confront these fears together just as we did in the meeting. I choose to believe in us, David." Her touch ignited a crackling realization. Willingness, connection, and vulnerability were as essential as any business strategy. But with this spark also came a burden. The familiarity of his protective walls loomed large. Overcoming the weight of expectation and fear would not be simple. As they exchanged silent promises, David felt a shift within himself, a decision to confront not only the potential of their partnership, but his own limitations. He had danced around ambition for too long. The conversations threaded through his mind like an intricate tapestry, with each moment revealing yet another layer of desire and trepidation. But just as clarity began to unfold, a figure from his past crossed His mind an unexpected face that ever clouded his thoughts and long-held traditions his family held dear. The evening air was thick with possibility, but shadows from the past loomed closer. David, what's wrong? Sarah's voice sliced through his internal chaos, concern lacing her tone. I need to figure out what it means to face my history, to confront those expectations, he admitted, his resolve shifting. I can't fully embrace us until I understand myself. As they left the cafe, uncertainty curled around him like a fog. He could feel it, something fundamental was about to shift. Would he find the strength to reclaim ownership of his narrative? Or would old ties pull him back into shadows he longed to leave behind? The night was far from over. David now faced not only the journey of partnership but the ghosts of his past. The time had come to face them. The streets of the city were laden with whispers of opportunity and reflection as David made his way home. Each step felt heavy with the weight of his unresolved thoughts that swirled around like dust in a sunlight-filled room, obscuring clarity and readiness. He glanced back, half expecting to find Sarah beside him, her absence amplifying the solitude of his contemplation. How could he bring to light the fears he had buried, the history that loomed like a specter haunting his ambitions? When he reached his apartment, the familiar space felt foreign. It was a sanctuary turned cell, a place where mundane routines could no longer distract him from his choices. He dropped his bag at the door and poured a glass of water, the clear liquid glistening under the harsh kitchen light. Looking into the glass, he questioned what it meant to face his fears, each ripple against the glass a reflection of the myriad possibilities that awaited him, most already masked by his hesitation. He flipped open his laptop, needing to redirect his spiraling thoughts. The screen flickered to life, revealing the inbox filled with missed emails and notifications from their project. David had built this vision brick by brick, yet now it felt like those very bricks were pulling him backwards. He couldn't help but think about how Sarah had held her ground. She had stepped boldly into this venture despite the risks. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, a testament to his insecurities. With a deep breath, he opened a blank document and began to type. This was more than a workspace. It was an invitation to explore. He described his feelings about the project, but his thoughts dragged him back to Sarah, her courage, her unwavering belief in their potential, and the undeniable chemistry that whispered promises he hadn't been brave enough to consider seriously. But writing wasn't easy. His emotions coalesced into questions that halted his progress. What if he failed her? What if this partnership didn't yield the results he hoped? The daunting notion of their professional relationship crumbling under the weight of personal stakes doused his enthusiasm. Yet, the potential victory felt alluring. Success beyond their wildest dreams, he could see it shimmering just out of reach like a mirage. He pushed back from the desk and wandered to the window, where the city lights flickered like stars in the void of night. Snatches of laughter and conversation drifted up from the streets below, a reminder of the life coursing around him while he struggled inwardly. In that moment of solitude, something shifted. The dense haze of his fear began to lift, revealing a rising determination to confront his past, not just for himself, but for Sarah too. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to reach out to the very figure from his past that had clouded his thoughts. Maybe confronting this lingering shadow would clarify both his professional ambitions and personal desires. It was time to call his father, the man whose legacy weighed heavily upon him, the old expectations which had long guided his steps. As he retrieved his phone, climbing doubts collided with his growing resolve. Nobody liked the phone call no one wanted to make. Yet it was precisely this discomfort that marked the boundary between his past and present. He needed to break free, not just from family pressures but from the constraints he had placed upon himself. Heart racing, David dialed the number, uncertain of the voice on the other end, of what history would resurface. With each ring, his resolve hardened. The years he spent running from these very calls had allowed his ambitions to stagnate, his fears to fester. Hello? The familiar voice echoed across the line, cutting through the distance of time and space. The moment had finally arrived for David to redefine his story. Dad, we need to talk. As the words reverberated in the air between them, he felt his heart pulse, a mix of fear and anticipation. Confrontation was inevitable, and with it, he sensed the opportunity for newfound clarity. But as the conversation began, A sudden realization flickered before him. What if this call pulled him into a dark maze of expectations once more? Could he navigate this labyrinth without losing himself again? The true challenge was just beginning. David's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. The familiar cadence of his father's tone bore the weight of familiarity and unresolved tension, a reminder of old wounds that had never fully healed. "What about?" his father asked, the brusqueness of his tone setting off alarm bells within David. He took a moment, inhaling deeply, constricting his stomach against the flood of memories that threatened to engulf him. "This isn't just about your expectations, Dad. This is about what I want, about what I need," he said, forcing clarity into the air. But the effort felt like trying to coax a flame from a match in the wind, its flicker striking against years of neglect and misunderstandings. "Need? You have a good job with a future, just like I had planned for you," his father replied, veering straight into the familiar territory of expectations. David felt anger bubble up, coaxing him to be assertive, to shatter the ceiling of his father's ambitions for him. But every retort felt caught in his throat. As he struggled with the words, a memory flickered in his mind, a time he had brought home a painting from a school contest. He had been ecstatic, hoping his father would celebrate his creativity. Instead, his father had criticized it mercilessly, insisting on practicality and real accomplishments. David realized in that moment this conversation mirrored their history. "Is it too much to ask if I can choose my own path?" David said finally, grounding the turmoil in steadier resolve. "I'm working with someone I respect and in truth someone I care about deeply. You may not understand that, but I need you to try." There was silence on the other end, then a rare pause that felt charged, bursting with years of unspoken words. "Care about? This is business, David. It's risky. Your mother wouldn't approve," his father said, veering into concern wrapped in criticism. David's heart clenched. Those words hit like a slap, echoing the persona his father had crafted for him over the years. He felt the weight of their history settling upon him, pressing him into a corner. But now, with the specter of Sarah's boldness propelling him, he dared to stand taller. "I'm not Mom, Dad. I'm not going to be what you want me to be. I'm sorry." A dark shadow fell over his father's voice, now laced with an edge of disappointment. "Then you're making a terrible mistake." David swallowed hard, stung yet unyielding. "Maybe I have to make this mistake to grow." He pressed the phone closer to his ear, feeling the backlash of silence, yet he sensed a shift, a crack beneath the pressure of past expectations. But the intensity of the confrontation began to spiral, intertwining with doubt. Was he doing the right thing? Was he truly ready to bear the consequences of his choices, to confront a future unknowable? The thought of bouncing back to the safety of his father's model moments beckoned a shadow all too familiar, seeking comfort in the past. His determination fluttered against anxiety, creating a churn of emotions he could barely contain. What would it mean if he succeeded, and what would happen if he failed? "David," his father's voice snapped him back. "I cannot support you if you choose this path." The weight of that ultimatum settled like lead in his chest, stirring something deep within. He had learned to operate in the shadows of his father's approval for too long, but maybe, just maybe, this would be the initiation of his own path, where he could shape who he was meant to be. Gathering his thoughts, he recognized that each hesitation based on his father's assumptions drew him further away from his desires and dreams. Instead of feeling crushed, the realization imbued him with a sense of empowerment. Standing at the precipice of a decision, he resolved, "Then I'll have to make that choice alone." The line went dead. David sat in silence, surrounded by the humming white noise of his empty apartment. Outside, the city shifted, oblivious to the seismic change within. He had severed the tether that tied him to his father's vision, yet in doing so, the unknown blossomed, presenting an open expanse filled with both potential and dread. He turned back toward his laptop, invigorated yet terrified. It was time to recommit to his project, to channel his questions into action. It wasn't just about him, there was Sarah waiting on the other side of this evolving vision, waiting for him to step into the light. With each keystroke, the narrative began to reshape. As the words flowed, he began to outline not just their project but a life redefined, that of a partner, an aspirant, and a man boldly facing his truths. But as he crafted his vision, an unexpected ring broke the silence, shattering his concentration. He glanced at the screen, an incoming call from Sarah. What would she ask? Would she understand the transformation he had begun? David hesitated before picking up, realizing that what this conversation could mean might unravel everything once more. David answered, his pulse racing as he heard her voice on the other end. Hey, I just wanted to check in after today's meeting. How are you feeling? Her tone was light, but David sensed the underlying concern, the intention to bridge the gap that lingered after their last encounter. The weight of their combined ambitions hung palpably in the air, but so did the tension of unspoken words that pooled like water waiting for the dam to break. I'm good, David replied, forcing a measure of calm into his voice. Actually, I had an interesting conversation. A moment of silence followed, and he could almost hear her heart rate quicken. About the project? Yes, but more about deciding what I want. What I need. He realized he was venturing into intimate territory, yet the urge to share felt overwhelmingly necessary. You mean your father? She asked gently, as if wading through the topic with the care it deserved. He inhaled deeply, exhaling the tension that had coiled in his chest. Yes, I finally confronted the expectations he has placed on me all my life. I told him I'm pursuing this path, our path, and that I can't let him dictate my choices anymore. A pause from Sarah indicated she was processing what he had just revealed. And how did he take it? David's brow furrowed at the thought of the ultimatum, but something sparked deep within him, unshackled resolve. Not well. He hung up on me. She inhaled sharply, the concern evident in her voice. I'm sorry. That must be so hard. It is, he admitted, the honesty making it easier to talk. But it's also liberating in a way. I've spent so much time worrying about what he would think about adhering to that legacy. For the first time, I feel like I can build something for myself, for us. Her breathing deepened over the line, a calm before a storm of possibilities. David, what you did, that's a huge first step. If you're ready to step out from under that shadow, then we can truly make something that honors both our visions. Her belief in him propelled David forward. The walls he had built around his emotions began to crumble, allowing the warmth of their collaborative spirit to flood in. I want to do this with you, Sarah. I want to shape a future that blends what we both aspire to together. Her voice brightened, and he could hear the smile through the phone. I want that too, David. More than anything. But we'll need to be open with each other about everything we face along the way. Are you prepared for that? He hesitated, realizing that this journey didn't just require professional partnership, but emotional honesty, the kind that might expose them to vulnerability. Yes, I am. I'm ready to tackle this head-on. I don't want any more barriers between us. Sarah let out a soft sigh, and he could feel the warmth of her approval, like sunlight breaking through a lingering cloud. Good. Because I want us to create a legacy together, one based on trust and understanding. We'll redefine what success looks like on our terms. In that moment, David felt a shift. He could see their collaborative vision taking form, woven together with tenacity, ambition, and a shared personal connection that flourished amidst challenges. Every initiative, every project they envisioned together, could reflect the balance of their foundational principles and the daring spirit they had nurtured. I need to tell you something too, Sarah suddenly added, her voice dipping with sincerity. Before you called, I was worried I was getting too involved emotionally, that it might risk our partnership. But hearing you speak so candidly, it made me realize that this is a risk worth taking. He could feel his heart swell. I want you to know that you're more than just a partner to me. This connection, we both know how special it is. I think we owe it to ourselves to explore it. I agree, she said, her voice now laced with resolve. Let us not shy away from what might bloom here. I want that too. Their conversation painted a picture of new beginnings, the lines of their journey shimmering with possibilities that had once seemed out of reach. As they discussed next steps for the project, a sense of clarity overtook David. This was not only a union of professional pursuits, but an opportunity to grow immensely on a personal level. The night wrapped around them like a promise, the uncertainties still present but softer against the burgeoning hope that flickered like stars above. They had begun to forge their path, one where vulnerability illuminated strength, and connection confidently redefined both their futures. He needed to embrace this moment, to stake his claim on success not measured in accolades or figures, but in the authenticity of their collaborative spirit. Their legacies would no longer merely anchor them, but propel them into a bright and promising horizon. "Let us meet tomorrow," he suggested, a surge of determination coursing through him. "We can finalize our pitch and make it stronger than anything we could accomplish solo." "Yes," she exclaimed, excitement threading through her tone. "Together we'll create something amazing. I'm just as invested in this mission as you are. And now it's about us moving forward." As David hung up the call, the weight that had settled on his shoulders in the early evening lifted, replaced by a sense of direction. He would no longer walk alone, and the legacy he was creating was now a tapestry interwoven with trust, ambition, and perhaps the most significant element of all, love. In that realization he felt a new chapter unfurling, a promise he was finally prepared to keep. To live not only for himself or the expectations of his past, but for a shared future forged in partnership, a true evolution of his individual journey. The moment was alive with potential, and he had chosen to embrace it wholeheartedly. And as the dawn broke outside, David knew this was just the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.